There are moments in life when you feel different. When your heart beats louder than the crowd. When silence speaks louder than words. When the world calls you one way, but something higher calls you another. If you've felt that, you're not alone. And according to Pope Leo XIV, you may already be walking with a divine seal upon your life. Introduction. What does it mean to be sealed in the Spirit? Narrator. In spiritual terms, being sealed by the Spirit means you've been marked by divine intention. You're no longer simply living. You're being led. For Pope Leo XIV, this was not a mystical exaggeration. It was a lived truth. He often spoke of what he called the hidden signs of spiritual election, the quiet indicators that someone has been chosen by God, not for prestige, but for purpose. The first sign? A divine restlessness. You can't explain it. You have blessings. You've done what the world asked of you. But still, something stirs. A yearning. A hunger. A pull towards something more. Pope Leo once said in a private reflection, "I've always believed that God begins by agitating our peace, because He wants to offer us His. When you feel a holy discontent, when your comfort is no longer enough, that is not failure. That is the Spirit tapping your soul." Think of the prophets. Moses didn't choose the mountain. It burned inside him before he ever climbed it. Jeremiah tried to run from God, but confessed, "His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in, indeed I cannot." Jeremiah 20 verse 9. Even before he became a bishop, Pope Leo wrote in his journal, "Why does peace feel incomplete? Perhaps because it is not rooted in obedience yet. So if your soul is stirred, you are not broken. You are being summoned." The second sign is harder. You've been through more pain than most. Maybe you've lost more than others know. Maybe you've suffered quietly, unjustly for years. And yet, you haven't hardened. You've softened. Where others grew bitter, you grew deeper. Where others became cold, you became compassionate. God does not always shield the chosen from suffering, he once said. Sometimes He allows it, because only those who've bled can bandage. Being chosen doesn't always look like success. Sometimes it looks like scars. Even Jesus, after resurrection, still bore wounds. Why? Because those wounds proved His love. Have your wounds given birth to empathy? Have your heartbreaks made you slower to judge, and quicker to forgive? Then take courage. You're not weak. You're marked. The chosen are often restless, often wounded, but always called. You may not wear robes or sit on a throne. You may not preach to crowds or hold spiritual titles. But if you carry these signs, you may already be one of the chosen. In Part 1, we explored the restlessness of spirit and the shaping of compassion through pain. But the Spirit's seal doesn't stop there. It begins to change your direction. It begins to rewrite your mission. And the next two signs? They reveal a transformation that no one can deny. There was a time when praise satisfied you. When promotions, likes, or compliments meant the world. But now, something's changed. You still succeed. But it doesn't feel like enough. You long for impact. For meaning. For eternity. You'd rather help one broken soul than be applauded by 1,000. You'll know you are chosen, he said, when your ambition shifts from climbing to kneeling. For Pope Leo XIV, this was personal. As a young theologian, he had access to power, Vatican politics, leadership roles, fame in Rome. But he gave it all up to serve in Peru. Why? Because ordinary success didn't fill him anymore. He once told a friend, "The applause in cathedrals fades, but the weeping in mission fields? That stays with you." When you begin to care more about obedience than opportunity. When you measure your life by faithfulness, not fame. You've crossed into divine territory. You've been chosen. God's chosen. Pope Leo said, are never bored. Because they are too busy pouring themselves out. The fourth sign is subtle, yet impossible to fake. You feel more at home with the forgotten than with the famous. You are drawn to the poor, the overlooked, the misunderstood. Not because they pity you, but because you see God in them. Pope Leo XIV once declared, if your heart does not ache for the margins, it is not yet molded by the Spirit. Maybe you've been moved to volunteer in places others avoid. Maybe you've befriended someone society discarded. Maybe your prayers are more for trafficked children than for your own goals. That's not naivety. That's calling. The Spirit always sends us downward, into the gutters of grief, the shadows of shame. Because Christ is still there, waiting to be found. Let's be clear. This sign is not about charity. It's about intimacy with those who hurt. It's about seeing Jesus in places the world avoids. That's why Pope Leo insisted that every Vatican leader under his administration spend time outside church walls. In shelters, schools, slums, and prisons. I met Christ in the eyes of a refugee. I had preached about him for years. But I only saw him today. You know you are chosen. When comfort bores you, and pain draws you in. We've seen how the chosen are marked. Not by robes or recognition. Not by titles or triumph. But by holy restlessness. By wounds turned to compassion. By ambition that bends toward surrender. And hearts that beat for the forgotten. But there is one more sign. A sign that transcends status. A sign that binds all the others together. The final sign? You begin to hear God speak. Not in thunder. Not in grandeur. But in stillness. In the pause between your fears. In the whisper behind your instincts. The chosen are not those who shout for God, he once said. They are those who recognize his whisper. Maybe you've had moments where something inside nudged you. To forgive. To leave a place of comfort. To speak a truth you were afraid to say. And even though it made no sense, you obeyed. That wasn't random. That was the voice. And your obedience? That was the seal. For Pope Leo XIV, obedience was never about fear. It was about trust. Obedience is not weakness, he once said. It is the courage to surrender the pen and let God finish the story. People sealed by the Spirit live strange, beautiful lives. They don't follow trends. They follow the tug. They're not led by pressure, but by presence. Not my will, but yours. If you've noticed that you can't go back to normal, that peace doesn't come unless you're living aligned with God's will, then the fifth sign is already upon you. You are listening, and you are obeying. And that obedience is the evidence of the Spirit's seal. Months before his election, Cardinal Prevost, soon to be Pope Leo, wrote a note in a private retreat journal. It was addressed to the hidden ones. He never read it aloud, but it was later shared by a fellow Augustinian. Here is what it said. To you who are weary, but still serving. To you who hear nothing from heaven, yet still obey. To you who've lost more than you've gained, and still return to the altar. Know this. You are chosen. Not because you're the loudest. Not because you're the most righteous. But because you have not walked away. Stay hidden. Stay faithful. Stay on fire. The world may never notice you, but heaven already has. All over the world, there are chosen ones walking unnoticed. Teachers in underfunded schools. Mothers praying over their children. Young men battling temptation with no applause. Elders clinging to faith in silent hospital beds. If this video is reaching you, it's not random. It's a reminder. There are 5 signs, but one calling. To walk with God. To love like Christ. To live sealed in the Spirit. So if your life has been marked by restlessness,